We will be talking about China. Now, China has a very long history of civil wars and civil unrest. Now, during World War II, there was a group in China that was a communist faction, and they were basically fighting against the Chinese. Now, the Chinese also had an enemy, that was Japan, and they both realized that Japan would wipe both of them out if they did not work together. So they, of course, formed a faction together to fight against Japan. But, as we all know, Japan was taken over, and because of that, well, China and Communist China both had a war. And because of this, Communist China ended up winning with Russian help and their great variety of people that they had. Because they had many people on their side because they wanted to be a very big country. They wanted to be a very powerful country, and they wanted to have a very controlling country. Now, nowadays, this is still lived on. They're not a republic, but they do have the republic in their name. The Chinese Republic. The Republic of China. It's their name. But they are very far from that. They do not have any other leaders that can be voted on. They do have a president, but he's more like a dictator or tyrant than an actual president. Because you see, there are very many problems in China. They have lots of problems. Now, China has a very big censorship deal with Google. Google will censor lots of the things they do. They are trying to get on board with. They are, in fact, trying to make Google has a project where they will send it to China and will be China's Google, where it will basically, it's just gonna automatically censor all of the bad things China has done. That way their population cannot see it. And because of this, people are being outraged. People do not want China and Google to be making this deal. Now, a big thing is, China and Google has not, they've laid back the project. They've delayed the project. But it will still happen. People in China, right now, are still going to be censored by the Chinese government themselves, and not allowed to use a lot of the things that Google has, and basically they are kept away from the internet. People can go on the internet from China, but what they do with the internet is limited because of what China does with their censorship. Now, there is a province in China called Xinjiang, where there are a population of I can't really pronounce the words. It's hard to say, but Uyghurs. It's a Turkish population of Muslims that have been known for bombing places and stabbing people in China. So, because of this, China has really cracked down on the people, but a big thing is, not a lot of the population actually takes part of this, terrorist acts, but because of those few extremists, and because they have rebelled against China, China has put 1 million people in a concentration camp. It's a concentration camp, but they call it rehoming. They're putting them in a place until they can put them out. Redistribute the people back into their land, which is false. Many people have died in this concentration camp. Women and children have been put in this concentration camp, and it's a very big problem. Google has censored these concentration camps on maps and whatnot, and if you look up the Google, you Google it, you can find it, but Google itself will not admit it. They will not put out information about it. Now, people that use Google, well, of course, YouTube is a Google company, are able to, because we have the freedom of speech in America. One of the great things about being in a republic, being in a democracy, is that we have free speech. They do not have that in China. And because of that, many people are censored, and we have to do something about this. There are many other countries where there is censors and censorship, but China is a very big problem. They are one of the biggest importers and exporters in this country. They have the second biggest economy, not the third. First biggest, of course, is the U.S., and, well, we take pride in that. It's ours. That is ours. And the only real reason why China has such a big economy is because they give their billion people nation, they give them very bad jobs that produce a lot, but do not give them a lot of money. For the average worker, they will, in the 1970s and to the 2000s, used to make only $4. Nowadays, they're making a little more with the fact that they have become more open to the world, but they are still not as good as, they still do not have the freedoms we do. And because of that, people do not earn as much. There are people in China that have it just fine, but there are also lots of people that do not have it just fine. They do not have the freedom to work on their own conditions, or, the freedom of speech, which is a very big problem. So, because of this, we need to do something. Also, another thing is, with China, one of my friends had a project to do about, basically, will China have an armed confrontation with the U.S.? Now, he used the fact that them and Japan, they're fighting over an island, and it's a very big religious symbol. And he said that the Chinese were very religious. They used to be very religious. In fact, now they are the most atheistic country in the whole world. They have the most atheists. Why? Because of the government. The government has silenced the people and have said that they are the gods, and because of that, they will listen to them, and because that China is censoring their people in such a way, and, they banned Christianity and other religions, especially Buddhism, which was a big thing. It was a very big thing in China. In fact, it was invented in China. It's not there anymore. Now, of course there are going to be Buddhists in China. But if you go around and, Tiananmen Square, you have a bunch of college students that, they want to be able to be free like America. And they want to be able to, have different religions. And they stood up for that, and they got killed for that. Tiananmen Square is a big thing that is censored in China. It's, really, no one really knows about it in China. Now, why is that? Because the government of China has censored it. They constantly censor the things that they have done. They have censored what they did in Xinjiang with the concentration camps, and they have censored A lot of the things they are doing now, like their deals with Google, they have proxy wars with other countries such as India and sometimes with Mongolia and Japan. But Japan can't really fight them because they have a defense army. After World War II, the only army they're allowed to have is a defense army. But China has still found ways to terrorist attacks and whatnot, and blame other people for what China has done. Mongolia, they have been supplying same thing, terrorists and whatnot. I don't really know what their goal is with Mongolia, since Mongolia is such a barren country. They've been fighting, or aiding, Pakistan against India. And it really causes a very big problem where you can see Pakistan and India are right on the border of each other. And India and Pakistan both have nukes. They both have big armies. They're both being supported by superpowers. At the end of the day, it's not going to end well. So it's just another problem that China has. And another one is North Korea. Really, North Korea and South Korea have been fighting for such a very long time. And they have had a ceasefire in the 1950s once we got involved. But they've been supporting North Korea openly, giving them missiles, money, and whatnot. Really, Trump stepped in and stopped that from happening publicly. Really, I think that North Korea is still being supported by China, and it's not really going to do anything. North Korea is on its own downfall, so at the end, China's really kind of pulled out, but secretly, I think they still do give them something, just to help them a little bit. Back to their northwestern province, Xinjiang, the people there are Turkish, and usually a lot of them are Muslims. There have been lots of terrorist acts, people being stabbed in public, blowing up of things in this area of the country, but at the same time, the people not involved have been put in the concentration camps, and really it hasn't solved anything, and there are over 1 million people in them, and that's a really big problem. And with this being such a big problem, it really needs to be resolved. 1 million people in a concentration camp. It's basically what it is. And really, we need to be able to end this and stop this. These people do not need to suffer, and they should not suffer. Their families are being torn apart for no other reason than because they are thought to be terrorists. And really, this is the end of the video, and, that's my rant about China.